For this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, "My Father has been working until now, and I have been working." Therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill him, because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also said that God was his Father, making himself equal to God. Then Jesus answered and said to them, "Most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son does in like manner. For the Father loves the Son, and shows him all things that he himself does. And he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives life to them, even so the Son gives life to whom he will. For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son, that all should honor the Son just as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life, and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. Most assuredly I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Do not marvel at this, for the hour is coming in which all who are in the graves will hear his voice and come forth, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation. I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge. And my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. There is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses to me is true. You have sent to John, and he has borne witness to the truth. Yet I do not receive testimony from man, but I say these things that you may be saved. He was the burning and shining lamp, and you were willing for a time to rejoice in his light. But I have a greater witness than John's, for the works which the Father has given me to finish, the very works that I do, bear witness of me that the Father has sent me. And the Father himself who sent me has testified of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his form. But you do not have the word abiding in you, because whom he sent, him you will not believe. You search the Scriptures, for in them you think you will have eternal life, and these are they which testify of me. But you are not willing to come to me, that you may have life. I do not receive honor from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of God in you. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe or receive honor from one another, and do not seek the honor that comes from the only God? Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, in whom you trust. For if you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? My Father has been working until now, and I have been working. Most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son does in like manner. I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. Yet I do not receive testimony from man. I do not receive honor from men. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe who receive honor from one another and do not seek the honor that comes from the only God? Okay, so here's what I want to say. I want to say the small bit first, okay? Jesus does miracles on the Sabbath. He does profound miracles on the Sabbath when you're supposed to do no work. So, how does dogmatic mind interpret that? How do people suffering from dogmatic mind interpret genuine miracles happening on the Sabbath? Well, they have to weigh two things. They have to weigh the rules and regulations against God's power bursting into the world. They have to weigh those two things. And dogmatic mind will come out in favor of you broke the rules. And I think this works in reverse. Another way it works, which I think is more applicable, well, put it this way. Daniel said the other day, if Jesus returns, those same people will also kill him today. Today. Nothing's changed. If I've noticed this, the world seems to be on freaking fire right now. It's amazing. But I don't know, 10 years ago, I'm not going to say what, 10 years ago, people made a choice in this world. And I said when it happened that this would lead to massive turmoil in the world. And it has to do with what Jesus said. If a person comes in God's name, the people will reject that person. But if a person comes in the name of God, no, I got it wrong. If a person comes in the name of God, people will reject that person. They will. If a person comes in their own name, people will receive them. This is how it goes. This is why they chose Barabbas over Jesus. This is why. They look upon Jesus and they say, this man has nothing to do with me. They look upon Jesus, they can find nothing in themselves to relate. But they look on a criminal, they look on a revolutionary criminal, they say, this I can relate to. This I choose. And so dogmatic mind, it's all about the power of men. It's all about the power of people, the power of our regulations. And I want to show a way in which you guys probably do it, and in a way to help free you, make you feel good. It works with sin also. You sin, and if you see your sin, this is for people that are Christians that understand Paul, understand the whole process of how to overcome sin. You see your sin, and instead of feeling a deep and profound humility, because this is who you are, and then the power that flows in from that humility seems to me immediately that makes you feel free. The mature Christian says, I am unworthy, and they feel unburdened and profoundly peaceful. When I say mature and immature, please keep in mind it's a big spectrum. The mature Christian sees profound sin in their lives, says, this is who I am, and I feel deeply unworthy. And saying that brings them peace. But a dogmatic mind sees that sin and is scandalized, ashamed. Instead of turning to the light, wants to hide from the light. I think it's the same condition. It's the same condition as the Pharisees. Getting upset because Jesus did a miracle on the Sabbath. That's the same condition as us seeing the deep sin, and then instead of saying, oh, because what did Paul say? Where sin abounds, there grace abounds more. He even had to explain to people why they shouldn't go sin so they'll have more grace. Because sin led to more grace. So you have to think, I'm saying this, you all sin, we all sin, everyone knows it. It's not even a dirty word in Christianity. You get accustomed to the word. You get accustomed to thinking, well, yeah, I am deeply sinful. Something goes wrong and you make a big mistake. You are the last one to be surprised. And if you're surprised, then, back to the drawing board on humility, right? Because of course, when I make mistakes, I say, of course, Clinton. Were you surprised, Clinton? Because no one else is. God certainly isn't surprised. See, we got to get where we can accept our human condition, accept it deeply. Most false mysticism, if you find false mysticism in the world, it almost always comes from an error there that does not want to accept the human condition. Doesn't want to accept it. Okay. So all right. So that's the small wheel, small thing. One more thing about that. So as we mature, it's not mature, immature. That's not it. We're all on a spectrum, me too. But if you're hard on yourself about your sin, please don't be. I've noticed when people throw a fit about their sin, it's actually a way of avoiding being truly present with it. It's the fit we get to throw a childish fit because we're a mess and we screw up. That's actually a way of avoiding true repentance and true responsibility. That's what it is. I've noticed people choose it in a squirrely way, where it's like, oh, they're gonna go spin out for a day. For that whole day, they don't really have to deal with the truth of it. They just get to spin out and be scandalized. Then at the end of that day, or if they're way unhealthy, a few days, then they get to be tired, right? And then it feels like they've done a great work, like I've done some work. And then, but nothing has been dealt with. Nothing. It's just it's when your toddler just starts screaming, beating things. And you think, whoever said they were angels? If that thing weighed 200 pounds, it would murder me. For sure. Like I was taught they were born enlightened. I'm like, no, they're not. They just like claw your face off and, bite you. It's like so hard. If they were 300 pounds, you'd be dead. So, okay. So now here's what I really want to say about this. That section is, I didn't know any other way because what I wanted to talk about was peppered throughout it, but it's a long section and it's filled with so much. There's no way to cover it in one day. So we read the whole thing, but what the ones I honed in on are the ones I reread. Then I've got them written here too. Jesus says, "My Father has been working until now, and I have been working." We know Jesus is uniquely the incarnation of the second person of God. You know that when he says a statement like that, he's talking about the inner workings of the Trinity. But we also know he's telling us how to know. He's telling us how to move in the world. And so Jesus is seen here to be equating himself with God. And the Jews are flipping out because they're dogmatic. But notice how often he says he doesn't receive the praise of men. I do not receive the praise of men. I want you to know that that is an active resistance. Not for Jesus, because he automatically doesn't receive the praise of men. If you come up and tell him how great he is, he doesn't receive that into his heart. He doesn't need you to tell him, he made you. He made you. You're coming up and being generous and saying, man, I love you. You're so neat. And let me tell you how neat you are. And he's appreciating that you're seeing. And he's like, man, you're so neat. But he's not going, thank you, man. I really needed to hear that. That's not where he is. If you see him that way, you don't understand what it means to be enlightened. Just as a human, let alone God incarnate. Jesus does not receive the praise of men. I wanted to say, because everyone's hitting these certain stages, you mustn't either. You mustn't. That's an active resistance. If someone praises me, some part of my heart just steals up a little bit. I don't say anything anymore. I used to say, as soon as anyone would praise me, I used to say in my heart, inside, I would say, I do not receive this. I do not receive this. And Clyde was also kind of amazing that way because, I thought he was a prophetic figure. I think I saw him better than a lot of people around me saw him. I would say something about him and he would say, Clinton, I don't need to hear that. And he meant it. You could tell he was like, dude, I don't care. I just don't care. So far from seeking the approval of people, far from seeking social standing, far away from that. We should not even be receiving it when it comes. And there's a reason why, and this is one of the things I think that's, I've already abandoned the notes, I can't use them. See, this is what's so amazing about Jesus. He's telling you there's a way to know truth that isn't intellectual. He's telling you there's a way to discern the times you live in that is not intellectual. He's telling you that there's a way to know God and truth that does not primarily come through discursive knowledge. And he's telling you the key to that. There's lots of keys, but he's telling you the key. And the key is, to what degree, when you walk around, are you looking for social standing? To what degree? How much power can flow through a person into the world when their actions, their thoughts, and their motivations are seeking the approval of others? Just think about that. Jesus is saying, when I judge the world, I judge accurately, because I do not seek my own will. Just as a spiritual director, it is, I don't have the language, it's mind-blowing to see how often when people are wrong, it's absolutely 100% because they want to be. They have all kinds of motives that are idolatrous. The motive of tribe, like, what's my tribe? What does my tribe think? What does my family think? What do people like me think? All of that is the same thing. That's the idolatry of social standing. So, if I'm going somewhere, I spend a lot of time alone. One reason is I don't want to be a part of all of that at all. I just don't want to be a part of it. I don't have anything against it, but I'm uninterested in social interaction that is driven by those motives because it feels extremely noisy to me. At the extreme, as many of us have discussed, it makes you tired because you're getting accustomed to being a channel for God's power in the world. Jesus says, I have food to eat that you do not know of. And see, we get where it's like, it's I have endless energy when I'm doing God's will. But I get tired when I'm not doing God's will. So then certain social situations are just inherently shallow enough that they're draining to be a part of. They make you tired. And when I was new, I thought, well, but I'll bring love and then they'll like me. But I found out something. I find out that eventually, if people have nothing to do with Christ, they have nothing to do with God, They hate you for it. Something about you they just can't stand. They themselves do not know what. Clyde used to tell me, be careful out there. They'll string you up. He said, you be careful out there. They'll string you up. And I used to think, maybe for you, in your time, that was true. And it's true. Now you don't get strung up on the cross. You don't get put in a nut ward like he did for being on fire spiritually. But you get ostracized from groups if you're true. And to whatever degree the group you're with isn't true, to that degree, to fit, you have to change yourself. The main person I wanted to hear this isn't here. That's recording. So think about this, okay? Because what he's really teaching us is how to hear God's voice. Just how to hear it. And I've been thinking a lot about mystics versus non-mystics and how to work that, how to make sure what I'm saying fits for everyone. And the most non-mystical people I know do feel God's presence when they're in it. They just feel it subtly. The most mystical people I know feel it quicker and more often. That's what I've noticed. And I've thought a lot about why that is, and I know for sure it's just character. It's God's will to have varieties of people. But I've also noticed something else. Mystical people are naturally, it seems, listening more. They listen more. And I started watching everyone's faces for a long time when I was in a spiritual setting. And you could see the mystical people softening their faces quicker. Maybe they would come in with a softened face. They would come in naturally, letting go of their drive and their agendas and their motivations, and be really listening to God's power. But then, as the non-mystics received the exact same amount of power anyway, I noticed them over time getting softer too, and listening more. So think about the sin of idolatry, okay? The sin of idolatry is busy. You come in, you want people to like you. You want to be a part of, you want to matter, you want to shine, you want to be special, or the reverse kind, which is you want no one to notice you, you want to hide, you want to not be seen. It's the same pride, right? One pride wants to show themselves off and say, here I am, I'm so neat. The other pride says, I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to be ashamed, I don't want to be exposed, I'll hide away. That's all just pride. That's the primary sin of Christianity, pride. That's all the same pride. How on earth is a person supposed to feel God's power in that situation and be a channel for God's power when they have every motive except that going on? Think of that. You see, I'm going to hide, make sure no one sees me. I'm going to duck, lean back, disappear, be invisible. That's a lot of work. It's an entire motivational system, right? And it's a whole behavioral system to avoid being noticed, avoid being exposed, to avoid being hurt. That person can't be a channel for God's power. And the other is just as true. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be really cool. I'm going to be funny. I'm going to show people how gifted I am. I'm going to be so special. I mean, I'm pretty advanced. I come from a line of gifted people. We're artists. We're also smart. We all are so educated. You name it. Then they come in shining all that, and that is a lot of work. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. But what they both have in common is they're noisy. They're noisy. Both of those motivational systems cannot hear God. They can't hear God. That's why Jesus is saying everything he's saying in these scriptures. How can you believe me when you do not seek the will of God, but you seek the approval of men? He's saying there's a way to know what is happening, right? Because the Trinity is happening. What's happening is the Trinity. That's what's happening. What's happening is God feeding itself into humanity to save us. And all the time. All the time. That's what's happening. And he's saying, how could you know that? How could you know, speaking of himself, he's saying, how could you know I'm speaking the truth? You're not listening, nor do you want to. So think of it this way. All of those are noisy, but they're drives. They're drives. It's what your will is doing. It's what it's doing. And Jesus is saying what your will should be doing is seeking my will. Jesus says, the Father is working until now, and I am working. Do you see how direct that is? In your soul, that means you are the way God is asking you to be in that moment. And you can hear that because it's the only thing you care about. And you can't hear that if you have motives that are driving you in a different direction. Remember I told you about that Buddhist guy that cut his one leg short, his one pant leg short? I'm sure, I'm certain. I just remembered, I think it's so neat. I just know that he liked to look good. He was very good looking, came from wealth. And I just know that he did that so he was embarrassed all the time. Until he wasn't embarrassed about looking goofy. Because I'm just guessing that he picked that because he really needed to look good. And he had to get over it. And it meant enough to him to get over it to look bad and probably be mocked. Not out loud, of course. People are very polite. But to be mocked, it mattered enough to him. He did it the whole time I knew him, at least a year. At least a year. Because he thought, this is deadly. I need to look good, and it's deadly. And you might think, well, that's so small, but it isn't if you think about it. It isn't small. It's like what John of the Cross said. Doesn't matter how small the string is that is keeping the bird from flying. It's keeping the bird from flying. So Jesus is saying there's a way to know. There's a way to know. There's a way to understand the time you're in, the place you're in, the situation you're in. And it cannot be heard if your will is something other than to hear and know and do the will of God. Because it's too noisy. It's just noisy. The content almost doesn't matter. It's noisy. You got to look professional. You got to look smart. So remember, once in a while I would read from the Tao Te Ching, and the Tao guy would say, he's at a park and there's all these people, and he would say, everyone around me is so confident. Everyone around me knows exactly where they're going. Everyone around me is so sure of themselves. And if it's the first time you read it, you think, man, this guy must have taken a long time to figure things out. Then at the end, he says it better. It's been many years since I've read it, so I don't remember all the cool things he said. Things like that, though. They're so sure of themselves. They know exactly what they're doing. They got it together. Probably how you feel when you're out in public sometimes. I've heard many people say that I think are being led by the Spirit. I look out there, man, everyone knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. So he says all these things. Then at the end, he says, I alone am confused. I alone am lost. I alone am purposeless. I am different. I am nourished by the Great Mother. So very similar to what Jesus is saying here. Very similar. So then, you know what you're going to say, at least what you say on a bad day. I listen, I don't know what God's saying. I don't even know if I'm doing God's will. And get pissed about it. That's why he says, I am lost. I am confused. So what I want to say is, it happens naturally as you advance, but also you should practice it. Do not receive the praise of men. Do not receive it. I'm gracious. If someone compliments me, I say, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm not rude. But in my heart, it steals up as I don't want it. You walk in looking good and people notice, do not receive it. The part of you that wants to receive it is the part that is killing you. If you give them the power to make you feel good, you give them the power to make you feel bad. So that's a practice. But more importantly, when you're driven by that, you're not listening. Then you're not listening. That's the more important part. Our vocation is to always dwell in God's power and appreciate God. And then in that state of appreciation, to appreciate little puppies and butterflies and trees, stones, and people. And we're appreciating them in God. So now they're in God because we're in God. We're in God because we're listening. And everything is blessed by that. Everything is blessed. When I got to say this thing, when I first started, I'm kind of intuitive, so it's like a big thing, for me. It's a big part of my navigational system. So what? Y'all know the weaknesses. I certainly do. But I remember being so spiritually sick. It's like, no, I don't want to know God's will. Here's what I'm doing today. I'm doing this. And I didn't want to know. That's how sick I was. I didn't want to know. Wake up in the morning, God, what do you want me to do today? I'll tell you what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing today. This is what I'm doing. I already have plans. And I saw that my intuition as an enemy. Seriously. I didn't like it. The notion that I could open the day up to God, and maybe my plans were irrelevant. Maybe they were utterly irrelevant, bothered me. So I would steel myself in my will, make that noise, and not hear the voice. So our vocation is to permanently dwell in God's love. Bummer, so such an inconvenience. To permanently dwell in God's life and peace and spirit. And then to appreciate all of God's creations around us. That is our job. Like, that is what God made us to do. And the sin of idolatry, social idolatry, stands in the way of it. It puts people before God. It's too bad because you were going to see those people anyway. You'd be looking at them anyway. Only now you look at them with dead eyes and you see dead people instead of looking at them with life and seeing living people. Okay, this is the very last thing I want to say, just to make sure it's so clear. What's in the way ultimately is just that drive. It's the difference between being receptive to God and attentive to God, or driven by some other motive. Doesn't matter what the motive is. It doesn't matter. It could be a good thing and it's still in the way. I bet you experience some fear if you go into a social situation like that. You don't get to have your walls. You don't get to have your adornments that make you feel confident in the world. It's a little vulnerable. It's vulnerable. It takes courage. Very last thing my friend said a long time ago, he said, Clinton, he had something like Court had. Remember, Court went in the hole 3 times, all the way to God. If you want to go, let's go. Then couldn't go. Well, this happened to my other friend. Different, not a hole, but a hole. 3 times, same thing. He died 3 times. He thought he died 3 times. I'm not saying he really died, but he said, "Okay, God, I'm ready. That's it. I'm dead serious now. I want total union with you, and I give up my life." And this power came over him, and his heart would stop. I don't know if it really stopped, but this is his experience. I don't know if it stopped. I wasn't there, but he experienced it stop, and he understood. All he had to do was let himself die, but he wouldn't really die, but let himself die, and he would have union. And he chickened out, and then begged for it. It came 3 times. Each time he resisted and rejected it. And he said, Clinton, I know God's will for me is infinite love. He said, I know it's infinite joy, and I'm scared to death of it.